Hi there, it's me Liberalia, and welcome to Quiz Night. Quiz Night is the show where we take a look at a quiz, and I talk to you about my truthful opinions on that quiz. Tonight we're going to be looking at a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire spin-off that I thought we started watching way too much of on YouTube. That's because I was just very curious about it, because a while ago, quite a while ago actually, I heard the soundtrack of it, and I thought, I've never heard of this version of it. It's like a famous quiz show, but it's like a spin-off of a famous quiz show. And I found out it's actually almost like a special event version that they only did for so long. But only sadly in America. Which is a bit of a shame, because I think in Britain it could have been really good. But I do understand the prize fund would have been extortionate here. So, enough to do, let's get into the video. Okay, now I'm going to try and just leave my opinions about the contestants, you could say, in the dust for this video. I'm going to do my best. I can be very opinionated on these things after all. But I'm just going to say it very brief. I did not like the first contestant on the show at all. So we're watching episode 2 of Who Wants to Be a Super Millionaire. These ones are quite a lot more pleasant. But anyway, the show itself. Who Wants to Be a Super Millionaire is basically a spin-off of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where they basically have it go up to 10 million, which is absolutely extortionate. I'm going to have to be honest, and sounds like absolutely the biggest prize I've ever heard on a quiz show. Even if it is in dollars, and I have a feeling because it's in dollars, it's not going to be quite as much as it would be here. I'm no good with currencies or maths or anything like that, but just from knowledge, you could say, I've learned that. Just from bits and pieces, really. So I do understand this is like supposed to be like an earth-shattering version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where basically you can get $10 million instead of just $1 billion, and yet that is pretty earth-shattering. I'm not going to lie. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire has a very different intro, I think, in America. Whee. But this is Super Millionaire. Some of these camera angles are quite crazy. Look at that. So, opinions on the format and presenters here. This presenter I think is okay. I just don't think he's very good at keeping order. I think he's got a little bit of a weakness with keeping order in his studio. He allows the contestants to sometimes, shall I say, try and bully others. And he actually allows that to happen. Well, I think Chris Tarrant, he was stamped on that. Really quite hard. So, apart from that, he's a really good presenter. I would definitely say he can do the show. He's got, the right attitude. He's got, quite a sort of cheery demeanour. So, yeah, I do like those things about him. But I just think he's a little bit, shall I say, he's probably not using that much authority over the contestants when they start getting a bit unruly. Which, let me just say, in America, they do that a lot. So what you got here is you've got the basic version like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and then after I think I might have this wrong. I think it's the $100,000 mark. I think that's what it is. It then turns into a slightly different version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where say you went to the next dimension of the game, and then you get these 2 new lifelines that I've never heard of. And I find the double dip one very interesting, because it's basically lets you have a guess, one free guess, without you basically losing your place. But as a consequence of taking that free guess, you then have to answer the proper question. you have to give the true answer as well. So if you basically give 2 wrong answers, you're out basically. So it's almost like you commit yourself to that. That's quite an interesting sort of like downfall to the double dip, but I do find that quite an interesting lifeline. And then they have one called the 3 Wise Men, which to be honest is a total lie, because there's nearly always a woman in them, so it should be 3 wise people really. And it's interesting in some way as well, but I think they hype it up a bit too much. They talk a little bit too much about it, to be honest. It's just another lifeline in the end. So, but it's again, I suppose it's interesting in some way. There, see? So you got now the almost like the hat, almost like the college hat logo, and the 2 times logo. Like I said, out of those 2, I do find the double dip a bit more interesting. The 3 wise men are really just a phone a friend. Really, almost like a phone a friend, but you're phoning like experts instead of just a regular friend. So, I would have personally called it something like experts or something, phoning experts. If you wanted to keep it with millionaires like trend. It just sounds out of place for Millionaire, that's all. But, apart from that, this has got a really good thought. Oh dear. Just going to adjust your screen a little bit, you can't see the question. Just give us a moment. Like I said, bit tipsy with the old OBS. There you are. You can see the question now. Now, I probably don't know a single one of these questions. It's probably the other one referred to as a bouquet. Doesn't sound like any of those to me. I expect a bouquet to be something like a bunch of flowers. So that's where my intelligence is, and that's why I don't go on quiz shows. But I can definitely spot a good quiz show from how many I've watched since I was young. I have had an affinity for watching them, gonna have to be honest. I used to watch Challenge day in, day out. Mainly because my grandmother used to do so. I'm gonna be honest, it was mainly because of her, but in the end I grew to quite like it. And I ended up just going to that channel myself. And over time I've seen a lot of different quiz shows. I've seen Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I've never seen Super Millionaire, that was never shown on Challenge. Probably because Challenge is not an American channel. But I was just interested to see this one, to be honest. Because, like I said, I heard the soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack sounded like a very hyped version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So... One thing interesting about this presenter as well, he gives them no suspense. I have to say this, you'll see that when she gets a question wrong, how quick he tells her she's wrong. And that is really quite strange watching that when you're used to Chris Tarrant eking it out, you could say. Saying, you had this much and you've just lost this much. And I preferably prefer that way of doing it. I think you need a bit of suspense in there. So I don't know if it's because Americans are impatient or what. But it's just... it's how quick he does this. No hold back at all. See? Straight down the pan. It's almost like, that's it, you got your question wrong, get off the show. Oh, she got nothing. That's a shame. I'm sorry I've had to cut their heads off in order to fit the quiz on the screen. Sorry about that. You could tell it was not quite the right resolution for this. I don't know why OBS doesn't have a function where you can just stretch it. Really don't. It's quite irritating that OBS only has a function where you can just fill the screen, but I don't see one where you can just stretch it. Put these hip hop songs in order. Well, I won't know this, but it's there. I'm sure some of you know it. So you have like the normal fastest finger first and everything. And that works pretty much how it does in England. Shows that the format of Millionaire was adopted worldwide, which must be quite an achievement for its brand. Think it's sell at all? Does Millionaire? It's quite an achievement for them. Oh, this guy is like... I'm trying to put this polite. He is like so nervous. He's absolutely... He's actually having a panic attack right there in the seat. It's a real shame. I would even question if he was actually well enough to go on a show like that. See why he just can't.